Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, episode 26.
I would say to take it slow, be your own person. Don't expect to be, the Greg Judys or the Gabe Browns or the Jim Garishes, right off the bat.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, helping grass farmers learn from grass farmers. I'm Cal Hardage, your host. On today's episode, we have Travis Ellis of Ellis Sheep Company. He's going to share about his journey in getting started with hair sheep, coming from a background of wool sheep. And then we take a deep dive in the OverGrazing section into his fencing practices. Travis, we want to welcome you to the Grazing Grass Podcast. We're excited you're here again.
Thanks, Cal. I'm honored and blessed to be chatting with you tonight. I love what you're doing with the podcast.
Well, thank you. And for everyone out there, I said again because Travis and I have had a couple tries at this, just getting through some technological issues.
It's been fun.
Travis, can you tell us about yourself and your operation?
Yeah, I'm Travis Ellis, and along with my wife, we started Ellis Sheep Company in 2019. We're located in Maysville, Missouri, which is about an hour north of Kansas City. We raise purebred registered St. Croix hair sheep and a few laying hens on roughly 30 acres. The sheep are registered in the St. Croix Hair Sheep International Association, and I'm the North Central Director for the association, which is a huge blessing. I'm pretty honored to be a part of that.
Yes. Now, how long have you had sheep?
So this round I've just started in 2019, but my journey goes back clear to high school, which I've been out of. I'm getting older, so I'm 32, so I've been out of high school for a while. But in high school for my SAE project and FFA, I raised just some crossbred wool sheep, and I wasn't practicing rotational grazing with them, just mainly turn them out into pasture and hope they have enough grass to last the summer, then feed hay, and I would lay them in January, and I'd feed them grain and stuff. So I had a lot of inputs. So I'm sure that wasn't very profitable for me in high school. Then after high school, I sold my flock, and I went to college about 4 hours away, and so I sold them, but my grandpa's had wool sheep in this entire time. So I'd come back and I'd help him take care of them on breaks and summer and weekends and stuff like that. And he, whenever I told him I was getting back into sheep, he joked with me and said that I'm not a sheep person, that I couldn't do it. So that's always been a challenge for me with him saying that, and I work hard every day to make him proud, and I think I have on my journey so far.
Very good. Now, you had wool sheep, but now you have hair sheep.
Yes.
How'd that process go?
Well, whenever Melissa, my wife, and I got married, we bought some cattle and put on this small acreage, and we just figured out we had like 4 or 5 head, and it was just more of a pain than anything. So I decided, we sold them and, went on and didn't have anything for a little while. And then our son was born in 2018. I wanted to get him involved in some livestock because I love being around livestock whenever I was little. And I told her, I said, let's get into sheep. And she's all for it. She's like, yeah, let's do it. And so being wool sheep, my vision was, a Suffolk. That was my breed I was going after.
Oh, yes.
And there were several around here, and I like the registered side of it. So I started doing more research about different things, and I found the hair sheep breed, and I dove in deeper. And this is all over about like 5 or 6 months of me trying to decide. And I finally decided on the St. Croix, and it was just trying to, tracking them down and getting them. So we've traveled quite a ways to get some.
Why did you choose St. Croix?
I chose St. Croix for a few different reasons. First and foremost was their parasite resistance. The more that I talked to different producers, they've never wormed their flock in 15, 20 years, and the 2 or 3 people that I'd contacted about them. They've got great mothering abilities. You don't have to shear them, which was a big plus.
That's a big plus.
They've got high lambing percentages. A lot of people get twin averages, which I thought was great. And they're now that I have them, and it wasn't a reason why I chose, but they're extremely hardy. They're out in the elements, and they eat anything, so it's pretty good. And probably the last reason that I chose them is there wasn't very many of them around here, and I wanted to be a little bit different and kind of stand out.
Oh, yes.
And whenever I say travel, my brother-in-law and my good friend and coworker Brad, we drove to Louisville and picked up the first 3. And then on the way home, we stopped in central Illinois and picked up another 4. So that was our first 7 kind of foundation ewes. And I bought a ram from the lady in Louisville. And then in March 2020, we made a trip to Fort Worth, Texas, just outside of there, and bought 7 bred ewes and brought them home, and we lambed them all out, and we've kept them ewes and sold majority of the rams from them. And then we made another trip to Fort Worth to buy some more this past December. So the truck and trailer will travel, and
oh yes,
I just love the St. Croix. So I'm extremely pleased with them.
Now for most of us, there's not too many St. Croix in our area. I know when I was looking for hair sheep, the St. Croix was something of interest to me, but there was nobody around here with any. Can you describe what they look like, how they compare in size to some of the more common breeds?
Yeah, they're very similar to the Katahdins. The ewes will be roughly 150 pounds, and the rams can get up to 200. Mine are all white. They're polled. The rams have the mane on them. Kind of like the Katahdins do. In my association, it's they're white and polled.
Oh yes.
So they're not compared to the Suffolks and the wool breeds, they're a smaller animal. But that's what I was kind of looking for, because I wanted to go on this regenerative path, and I wanted something smaller, nothing too big.
Yes, I believe the Katahdins used St. Croix as one of their bases when it was getting developed.
Okay. All right. I didn't realize that.
Trying to look it up. Yeah, he started with St. Croix ewes to Maine from St. Croix. And he had, now I'm taking this OSU, Oklahoma State website as gospel, but we'll go with it. I am a graduate of OSU, so we have to bear with that.
You got to stick to your alma mater.
Yes. So then he, and I'm saying he, the developers of Katahdins, Michael Pill.
Okay.
He then he included some other breeds in there until he formulated the Katahdins. He got it settled on what he wanted in it. I thought there was some relationship, or they were related some way. Yep. I know a fair number of Katahdins. That's what I typically see around here.
Yep.
St. Croix, I don't know that I see any around here, but as you talk and reading that, I might have seen some. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, there's guys that has Katahdins, and they're like, well, that looks like, they'll look at my ram and be like, well, that looks like my ram. I'm like, well,
oh yes,
it probably has some characteristics the same. So
I do know with my Katahdin ewes, I've got some that's a little finer bone, and I've got some that are really heavy bone.
Okay.
It's just two different body types. And to me, the heavy bone ones are a little bit bigger ewes, but the lighter bone ones look like they carry more meat.
Oh, yep.
I don't know if that's everyone's experience or just my
your
flock.
Yeah. That's what I see a few differences in the flock that I got from Louisville and the flock I got from Texas.
Oh yes.
There's some facial features, and their body's a little bit different, but they're all happy, healthy. So.
Oh yes. Well, very good. That's the important part.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us a little bit about your environment so we know what you're working in. When's your first and last freeze? What kind of rainfall do you get there?
Okay. Yeah. Our last frost is usually April 20th, 23rd, somewhere in that ballpark. And the first would be October 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere in there also.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. We get roughly 38 to 40 inches of rain a year.
Oh, yes.
It seems like it doesn't want to rain, July, August, but, I think that's kind of typical everywhere. But it's been raining here lately pretty good, so we welcome all of it that we can get.
Oh, yes. My grandpa always says we don't want to start missing rains.
Exactly. Yeah.
You miss one, you can probably make it, but you don't want that missed rain to become two missed rains.
Yep. And I think a book I read, it said it's not how much rain you get, it's how much rain you keep. So that's always stuck in my head.
Yes, that's very true. And that's one thing as we rotate and manage pastures and use more regenerative practices, we're hoping to leave more cover on that ground and make the soil more absorbent. So we're not giving all that water to the neighbor or letting it flow back to the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So what kind of forages do you have for your sheep?
Well, it's mainly fescue, and we're starting to get quite a bit of clover in there. Then the clovers are red and white. Last year just exploded with the white, but it sounds like that's the way it was all through the Midwest, it sounds like. So we weren't the only ones.
It's what happened here, too.
Well, and I'm not, a legume's a legume, so it came up for a reason and did it. So we welcomed it, and the sheep ate it. We've got some Korean Lespedeza and some Cerisa Lespedeza, which most of the cattle farmers and everybody just absolutely hates the Cerisa Lespedeza, but I've got just a small patch of it, and the sheep just go crazy over it. And so, which I've done a little bit of research on that, and with it's kind of like a natural dewormer for them. So I'll pass them through there, and they'll eat on it and kind of take care of it and be all right with it.
Yes, it's a great forage to have with your sheep.
Yeah. I'm not probably going to go out and plant it, but it's there in a little spot. So, and then we have switchgrass and brome and a little bit of timothy, and then the so-called weeds that people call them. We have horseweed and multiflora rose and broom sedge and poison ivy, and that I have a couple funny stories with the broom sedge and poison ivy. Is I've always heard that nothing eats the broom sedge, but a few weeks ago, I moved the sheep, and I parked their little shelter on top of a big bunch of broom sedge. I wanted them to trample it in and stuff. And I go out there the next day, and I'm like, gosh dang, that looks like they've ate that. And so I get my Plant ID app out, and I take a picture of it, and it says broom sedge. I'm like, no, that can't be. That can't be. And so I go over to one that isn't ate, and it says it's broom sedge. I'm like, okay, well, so they've stripped the top off the broom sedge.
Oh, yes.
So I was pretty impressed by that.
Well, very good.
Yeah, and then the poison ivy. Last summer, about mid-June, I turned them into kind of an old fence row, and they went right to that fence and started eating every leaf off that poison ivy. And at that rate, I told my wife, I said, we just need to start planting poison ivy if they're going to go crazy over it.
There you go.
And then I have, little sprouts of locust trees and stuff like that. Anything green, they just seem to eat. So everything is a forage to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, have you planted anything, or have any plans to plant anything?
We haven't since we've owned the sheep. Whenever we first bought the property, and a few years after that, we did some broadcasts, some clover, and we broadcasted the Korean Lespedeza.
Oh yes.
And last year is the first time that we'd seen the Korean Lespedeza come up. It's not super thick, so I'm excited to see what that does. But the clovers are coming pretty good.
Very good.
I'd like to possibly drill, some seed in just a few spots, see how that goes. But drills are expensive, and
I would love to have one, but I look at the prices, and it's not happening.
Yep.
Now, as you're grazing, a couple of questions I have on my list I really don't think I ask too often. What do you do when you have more forages than you can graze?
Well, so last summer I was in that predicament, and possibly I think I'm a little understocked. So
yes.
this kind of goes right in my alley. I try to go as fast as I can whenever I have a lot, just to kind of keep the seed heads off.
Right.
But I usually let it get off, the seed heads get on there before I can get them around there. And I've used my lawnmower and kind of clipped off some just to kind of get it, back down. And
yes.
my dad's got a brush cutter that I'm thinking that if I let it get too ahead of me, then I'll use it. But this year I'm a little bit better. I've more than doubled my flock since last summer, so I think I'm pretty close to just a little bit under my stocking rate, but I think I can get them around a lot quicker to get them seed heads and still get my recovery that I need on my other grasses.
Oh, yeah. You do have quite the opponent there, because when fescue decides it wants to seed, it wants to seed.
It does, yeah, and there's no turning back.
Now, talking about springtime and the flush of grass you have, what about winter? Do you try and stockpile forages for winter?
Yeah, we do. About the middle of August or whatever, they say we try to stockpile as close to the house as we can. I don't have water clear down to the south end, and no electricity, so I try to keep the stockpile up closer to the house, but we'll keep them off of that until absolutely we need to. December, January, we'll bring them closer to the house whenever the weather gets worse, and we can plug in tank heaters and stuff. So usually by the middle to end of August, all of the sheep will be the farthest away from the house and the barns is that they'll be, and just kind of keep working them back up. And I'm gonna try something I've heard a couple other of your guests have said, making more than one pass on stockpile.
Oh yes,
this year I'm gonna try that instead of eating it all the way down in one pass. I'm gonna see how the sheep do on doing multiple passes. So I'm excited.
Oh yes,
I'm not excited for winter, but I'm excited to try that.
Right? Yeah, I'm just happy to have some green grass. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in my busy time right now with the lambs and stuff, and I like this time. So there's not a whole lot going on, in the dead of winter for me. So.
Oh yeah.
I like seeing these little lambs running around.
It does make quite the farm scene when you see the lambs out there with the ewes.
Yeah, and we're right on a highway, so the neighbor lady, she'll call and say, "Hey, can I come over and see your lambs?" Or I'll have multiple people. There'll be some joggers that'll go by and say, "Hey, can you move your lambs up closer to the highway so we can see them?" And so it's pretty cool.
Yes, it is. Now, you mentioned when we were talking about stockpiling, you mentioned access to water. What are you using to water your sheep?
Well, that is kind of a bad subject, and it's kind of a wreck at this point. But right now, the only water I have is a hydrant kind of close to the barn, which is on the north end. So I've got to string out garden hoses to go clear down to the south. So I've got 600 or 800 feet of garden hoses, but then in the summer that runs into problem of water sitting in a garden hose all day on top of the ground. It's really hot, and sheep don't like hot water, so you run a lot of water on the ground that isn't needed. So I'm gonna pack just 10 or 15 gallon of water down a day this summer from the hydrant, just in buckets, and see how that gets me.
Oh yes.
I'm in the process of applying, and I've heard some good news in the past couple of days. I've applied for EQIP cost share through the NRCS, and that's to do interior fencing and water. So hopefully I can get started on that.
Oh, yes.
Hopefully I get approved for that, and I can start working on that by late summer, and that'll help out dramatically with the water situation.
It will. And I was just talking to a producer the other day about the EQIP loan and process. He put in a lot of paddocks. I was quite impressed with how nice everything was. You visit my farm, and it's kind of there, and I didn't spend much money to make it that way.
Yeah.
But his was super nice. I mean, it was like a show farm.
Oh, yeah.
on his fencing. He did a wonderful job with it, and he's like, yeah, Equip did all this.
Yep. I've been putting in for it for 2 or 3 years now, and I think that it's showing some good progress, and hopefully I'll get it this year, and we'll be able to put in, I want to put in some fencing every, 300 feet or so, maybe a little more, and then water and all them, different quick couplers and a few permanent water. I want to be as flexible as I can, but convenient. I work off the farm, so I have a limited time whenever I get home to do it, and always busy on the weekends. So if I can make it as easy as possible for me, it'd be great.
Oh, yes. I fully get that. I have great dreams, and I think I've got all these hours when I get home from my job. It takes me a little bit just to unwind from the job. Of course, unwinding with the cattle or the sheep's my preferred method, but still, it takes a little bit. And by the time I do very much, I'm like, wow, is it bedtime?
Yeah, exactly.
If it isn't, I wish it was. I'm tired.
Yeah, by the time I get home, my 3-year-old's up from his nap, and it's just, full bore to play. And I just want to sit on the couch and relax for a minute, but enjoy the time while I have it.
Yes, you've got to enjoy those moments. Now, you mentioned fencing just a little bit. What are you using for your fencing?
So, mainly for the paddocks now, I'm using electric netting from Premier One. That I've got several rolls of that. It's I have a love-hate relationship with it. It's great, and I probably wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without it. I'm the only one that is allowed to, pick it up and put it down, put it back up, because it just gets in a big knot, and then if somebody else does it, then I have to take the knot out, and it's not good. So I'm using that to
yes.
I'm using that for my paddocks, and then I'll use some poly braid that I get at Powerflex in Seymour, Missouri. I'll kind of divide it into, I can usually get a couple days out of a paddock. Right now I'm moving them every day.
Oh, yes.
I kind of strip graze a little bit. Right now I'll set it up and do the rolls are 164 feet long, so I'll go 164 by 164. Then I'll divide that with a couple poly braids per division, and then I'll have a spot, the first spot they're in, then I'll just take that wire down and let them in, then let them have 2/3 of it, and then the next day I'll take down the third one so they have the full thing. And it seems like it's working out pretty well. I'm sure my strategy will change once the grass is slowed down, but I'm just trying to get them across it as fast as I can right now. It takes some time. I have several of them, but it works for me.
Travis, what other enterprises do you have on your farm?
Well, that's a great question. We've got a couple different. I've got another one going with the sheep, which is St. Croix breed is part of. They're a heritage breed sheep, so they're part of the Livestock Conservancy. Livestock Conservancy is a group that just watches over all the heritage breeds. It doesn't matter if it's sheep, cows, pigs, chickens, whatever. Well, inside of this Livestock Conservancy, there's a program that they have that is called Shave 'em to Save 'em. It's for all the sheep breeds, wool or hair, it doesn't matter. Fiber artists will join, and they get this passport, and I signed up as a provider of hair. So I have these stickers, and I put what breed it is and who I am and what date I sold it. So I go around and I collect the hair that my sheep are shedding, and they're shedding really well at this point in time.
Yes, they are. I'm sure they are. Mine are.
Yeah. So, instead of that hair just laying there on the ground or whatever, just, it's piling up on my cattle panels. I'll collect it and put it in a bag, and, I'll sell it to these fiber artists, and they make. I'm not exactly sure what they make. I'm the people I've sold it to are going to be emailing me, what they do. One lady said that, they might make rugs or something. It's not soft, so it's hair, kind of like dog hair, kind of. That's the best way I can describe what it feels like. It's somewhat soft and has some oil in it, but so they have to purchase 4 ounces, which going into it, I'm like, well, that can't be that much, but it's a gallon Ziploc bag, completely full, stuffed full, and that is 4 ounces. Good. So,
well, I was about to ask you, how much is 4 ounces of it?
It takes a lot. I don't make a lot of money on it. It's more just I want to see what these people make out of it.
Oh, yes.
And it gets my name out there. A lot of people that aren't looking for sheep, we bought St. Croix hair fiber from Ellis Sheep Company.
Oh,
so
yes.
It's really cool to do that. So I've got a list fairly long that I'm trying to accommodate everybody. So it's pretty cool. So that's my other one with the sheep.
And I haven't heard of that program before, Travis, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's only been out a couple years, and they've actually extended it.
Oh, yes.
This year due to COVID, I guess, and I don't know if they have it was supposed to end this spring is what I've kind of gathered, but they've extended it, so people are really reaching out.
Okay.
It was a hard thing for a lot of people to find, so I have a list 15, 20 people deep.
Oh, wow.
That are wanted. So I've shipped out my first batches the past couple days. So if you want any St. Croix hair, just shoot me an email or give me a call. But and then
that's really interesting. I'm excited to find out what they do with it.
Well, I am too. I'll have to share it with everybody. So
yes.
So that's my other enterprise with the sheep. Besides selling, I mainly sell breeding stock, seed stock, rams, and I'll sell a few ewes here and there. But trying to get my numbers up before I sell too many ewes. And then the other animal we have some laying hens. It started out just being something for my son Tice, and I told him and my wife, I said, now these are going to go out on the pasture because I mainly kind of want them for that, to go out on the pasture and eat bugs and be a chicken. So we started out with a few hens, just chicks, and Tice loved them, being a 2.5, 3-year-old. And
I imagine so.
So Melissa's like, it's late December. They're getting really close to start laying, but it's December, and we go down to buy them sheep down by Fort Worth, and these people they're amazing people down there. It's who we went down to and to get some of our first ones, and they're moving and they're selling their flock, and of course I bought the entire flock. And so we get down there, we're getting ready to load the sheep up, and they say, you want any chickens? I'm like, yeah, I'll take a few. Melissa would like some eggs. And so we start carrying chickens to the trailer, and we carried 26 chickens to the trailer. And they're like, nah, yes, you can just have them all. So we headed home with a trailer full of sheep, and the back of the truck kind of a livestock container deal full of 26 chickens. So
very good.
I called Melissa on the way home. I said, you're going to have eggs tonight. So that's always a funny story. But I've met some amazing people. I've met some amazing people with these sheep in the association, out of the association. Sheep are taking me amazing places, and I love it.
Very good. Very good. Now, on your journey thus far, what kind of challenges have you encountered?
My biggest one, that it's kind of my personality. I'm getting better at it, hence why I'm on here, is the marketing. I'm not a huge put myself out there kind of guy. I'll talk your leg off if I know you. So marketing them for breeding stock has been hard, but the use of internet and Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that is really, really helping me. I was able to sell majority of my rams last year to people here semi-local, but
Oh, yes.
I'm branching out, and that's been my biggest challenge this year. So I'm getting better, but that's what you're supposed to do, get better at things, right?
Right, yeah. And if you didn't have challenges, everybody'd be doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where do you see your farm going in the next few years?
I'd like to. I think my stocking rate is around 80 ewes, so I'm about halfway there. But I don't want to go too fast. I don't want to get way too many for what my grasses will handle. So I'm going to take that slow. I maybe in the next 4 to 5 years be able to get to that number, just because I don't want to have a train wreck going on and I have to sell ewes in the middle of the summer. So I'm going to take that slow, get my grasses up. I don't want a whole lot more chickens because it seems like everybody around here has laying hens, and you can't hardly get rid of the eggs. But we'll eat a few and give some out, and we sell a few. I'd like to try some broilers just for our use and mainly for the pasture. And then I like the idea of pigs. I've got some timber back behind me that I could possibly use them, but on the sheep aspect, that's mainly going to be the main goal. So get my stock up in the next 4 to 5 years, and I'll be pretty happy with that.
Very good. Travis, we've reached the portion in our podcast, our OverGrazing section. It's where we take a deep dive into a practice on your farm or something you're doing. What are we going to take a deep dive into?
I'd like to dive in on my on how I build my perimeter fence and my temporary paddocks with my electric netting, if that's cool with you.
Hey, that sounds wonderful. So tell us about your perimeter fence.
So just a little background on what I kind of do. My dad and brother-in-law and I have a side gig where we build. It's mainly five barbed wire fence for neighbors, and just a kind of side gig off the farm. But so I like the traditional 5 steels and a hedge line. That's kind of where my mind goes. So I didn't want hedge because I didn't want to have to deal with insulators. So I use a fiberglass from PowerFlex. They had a 4.5 inch and a 3.5 inch fiberglass post, that I would fill them with foam, just some great stuff, just stick something in and kind of cap it a little bit. Then I drive the 4.5 inch post as my corner and my second, and then I'd put a 3.5 inch post for the brace. And then I'd use 1.25 inch sucker rod that was 5 foot, and I'd put them as per se the steel post, and then I use another 3.5 inch fiberglass post as a line. And then for the wire, I'm using it again. It's wire from PowerFlex down there in Seymour. It's a Stay Tough brand. It's a 36 inch. It's an electrified woven wire, so the entire thing is hot, which there's probably people's going to say that it's overkill and you don't need that for sheep, but I sleep better at night knowing that it's around the property and that coyotes probably can't get in it. I have guardian animals in with the sheep also, but it just helps me. I know I can sleep easy knowing that if a coyote's going to get in, he's going to get zapped. That's what I kind of do for my perimeter, and then I'll run a 12 gauge, just single hot wire on top of those, about an inch above it. I'll leave that woven about 2 inches off the ground. I'll leave the charger on it, running all the time, and keeps the weeds knocked down, and it's pretty good.
Well, very good. I'm sure that makes an attractive fence, and it may be overkill, but the important part is you get your sleep.
Exactly.
You got to feel secure.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned earlier you're on a highway.
Yes, I am on a highway. It's not a super busy highway, but I mean we get quite a bit of traffic. So it'll keep. We have a few stray dogs that'll come up and down the highway. So it helps. It helps with that too. And then my portable.
Well, before you jump to the portable, you said you drive your corner post in. So you driving them in rather than digging a hole?
Yes. We drive them in. My brother-in-law has a post pounder for a skid steer.
Oh, yes.
So I borrow that, and we drive them in. The posts come in 7.5 foot. So I'm not exactly. I kind of forget how far we drove them down, but I think we have roughly 4 feet sticking out of the ground. So we drive them down 3.5 feet.
Oh, yes. Yeah, quite a ways.
Yeah, and they don't move. That's why I even think it's a little overkill to have the corner and the brace, but I like the way it looks. I paint the post white.
Oh, yes.
It makes a sharp fence.
Oh, I think it would.
And then whenever I go around the post, and I'll tie it off, and then I'll cut the wire in the middle of the section to put the splice in. And I'll use what they call a gripple. It's a tightening mechanism. It has a tool that it'll tighten it up and make the wire tight, which that makes it really nice to use those.
I just purchased some of those earlier this year, or actually it may have been last fall, but I've used them just a little bit, and I've heard some complaints that they may be expensive, but I love them. I mean, it makes tightening that wire so easy, and anytime I've had to make repairs or something, I'm like, I hate to spend any extra, but I like these.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're real slick, and if you need to tighten up the fence again, a few weeks later or whatever, it's super easy. You just go out there and with your tool and tighten them.
Now, we talked a little bit about your temporary fence, but let's go a little bit deeper on your temporary fence and what you're doing there. You said you had electro netting. What electro netting are you using?
So I'm using electric net from Premier One. It's the 93512. I have several. I'm going to say I have 12 or 13 rolls of it.
Oh, yes.
So what I usually do, I'll set up a 164. They come in 164 feet lengths, like I said before. But I'll set them up in a 164 by 164, and then I'll come back in there and I'll divide it in thirds probably, or however much grass I think they can eat in a day or without overgrazing it. And then I'll go about every 15 feet. I'll take about 5 steps, and I'll put in a step-in post.
Oh, okay.
I'm using 2 polybraid wires from PowerFlex, and I'm using their step-in posts. I was going to use O'Brien's, but they were out, and these look just as good, just kind of look just like them. It's a little bit of a knockoff, but they work good for me.
Yes.
And then I'll just hook it on there, and each day I'll take it down, and I've got enough set up and divided for a week. So it goes up fairly fast. Last year I was doing like a 82 by 82. You can do about any configuration with the nettings that you want to. I like straight lines and even numbers.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So it works pretty good for me. It's kind of like a little ladder system, and then I just move them. And every third or fourth day or whatever, I'll take their water and their shelter and their mineral and move it to the next set of netting, and just kind of leapfrog all of them. But I've got enough now that I don't have to do it every time I move.
Oh, very good. I've got a couple questions for you about that.
Okay.
You run that poly braid. Are those on geared reels?
Yes, they are on geared reels.
Sorry, you get them to the end. Where do you hang that reel?
So that's been a little bit of a experiment for me, and I think I've finally figured it out. So I use PowerFlex geared reels also. They'll have them. I've asked them they'll pre-wind the poly braid on the reel for me, and so I'll put on like a gate handle on the end of that instead of the plastic non-conductive handle.
Oh yeah,
and I'll hook that on a post and kind of overlap the wire with it.
Oh, okay.
Put the wire underneath the hook of the handle.
Yes.
And I'll run that, lengthways or however I want to do it. And I overstepped there. You have to set the reel on the outside of the fence, and you got to run it through the fence, and then take it and hook it on. Then whenever you come back, I'll put a step-in post right on the inside of the paddock, and then on the outside, and the reels are setting on the outside of the wire. and I'll take a piece of rubber and I'll set it on the ground, and then I take a post and I'll shove it in the ground, and that's what's holding my reels from tight. To keep them tight. So they're not. I did have them hanging on the wire, on the fence, on the netting, and that was just a disaster. And then I'll take a pigtail post and I'll hook on the top of that post and kind of pull it backwards, and it keeps tension on them quite a bit. I'll have to take a picture of them and put it on my Instagram or something of how I do that.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's taken me quite a while to figure that out. Powerflex does make a post that'll go in the ground that you can hang them on, but I didn't want to spend $100 because right now I've got 6 or 7 of them out, so that'd be $600 or $700 that I'd have to spend if I wanted to keep up paddocks like that.
Yeah,
so it works out pretty good.
Very good, very good. One thing we didn't cover in talking about all this electric fence, what kind of energizer are you using, and what kind of voltage are you running?
So right now I'm running a 6 joule Stay Fix. It'll run. I'll get 6,000 to 7,000 with my netting in the winter. Now in the summer, I have so much netting on it. I'll try to unhook as much as I can, but with the weed load and stuff, it'll drop to 3,000 to 4,000.
Oh yes.
I'll take the lawnmower out there if the grass gets too much and mow a path before I set it up. But the more fence I put on and the kind of the more cross fences I do, I'm going to have to upgrade. But I'll either go with a Stay Fix, which they're speed right now, or I've been looking at the Cyclopses.
I was trying to think. I don't want to say this wrong. I think August that was on the podcast was big about the Cyclops.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, I'm going to edit it out, but I think that's correct.
Okay. I think you're right. But yeah, they're an American-made product, which that's nice. The only thing that they don't have, which I could be wrong on this now, but last I knew is that they don't have the remote shutoff, which the SpeedRite Stay Fix, that'd be really handy.
I love my remote, so that would be a hard sell for me to give that up.
Yep.
Well, Travis, we really appreciate it thus far, and we're time for our famous 4 questions. Same 4 questions we ask of all of our guests. Our first question: what's your favorite grazing grass related book or resource?
All right, I've thought hard about this, and I'm gonna go 2. One's gonna be a book, and one's gonna be a technological
very good
resource. So my book is Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown.
Oh yes.
That book's just chock full of good information, and I think he is the one that said, it's not much how much rain you get, it's how much rain you keep.
Oh yes.
And that really resonated home with me, and the monoculture is how he puts it, that nature doesn't throw up monocultures. It's always multiple species and stuff like that. And so that book I really enjoyed that book. And then my second one is going to be podcasts. Podcasts like this one and Clay Connery's Working Cows. yeah. This is one of my favorite. And then the Working Cows podcast, Grass Fed Life. I could go on with several others, but it's such a great. I appreciate you guys that do these. Just a wealth of knowledge, and especially this one's. Got guys on it like me that are doing this, or we can all kind of band together and do it together. But I drive so much for work that I don't have a whole lot of time to read. That I just download a podcast and I'll listen to it as I drive. So
that's one of the really nice features about podcasts. I commute between sites, and I usually have a podcast on anytime I'm commuting between sites.
Yep. It's pretty great.
What tool could you not live without on your farm?
I want to say my Polaris Ranger, because I'm on that baby every day, checking them. But it's 100% got to be my electric netting. I know I've talked about it quite a bit, and if it wasn't for the electric netting, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't trust my sheep to stay in the polybraid and coyotes out. It's whoever invented that, should be retired pretty well.
Yes. What would you tell someone just starting out on their grass journey?
I would say to take it slow. Be your own person. Don't expect to be, the Greg Judys or the Gabe Browns or the Jim Garishes, right off the bat. They're all great mentors, but they started where we all did too. So, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. Take it slow, build up, and your grasses and soil will thank you later.
Excellent advice. And lastly, where can others find out more about you?
Well, I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook, which Instagram throws it on over to Facebook. I'm trying to be more active on the live and the stories, but I don't like to put my face out there, and I don't really care for my voice, but who does, right?
Right, exactly.
So you can find us there at Ellis Sheep Co. We have a website, ellissheepco.com. On there, we have pictures of the lambs and Tice and about us, and whenever we're going to have breeding stock available, and it has some associations we're associated with. You can find me and the board and more about St. Croix on the stcroixhairsheep.org. That's the associations page, and I'm a member of the Livestock Conservancy, so I'm on there. You can find me on there too.
And we'll put links to all those sites on our show notes.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Appreciate that.
And sharing about what you're doing, about your journey. And I appreciate you trying this a couple times while we figured out these difficulties.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, even through the difficulties, we'll rise to the occasion.
There we go.
It's been great, Cal. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Travis. And for the show notes, visit grazinggrass.com. We have the show notes there for each episode, as well as links to the items talked about in the show. And as we've mentioned before, if you are interested in being a guest on the Grazing Grass podcast, we have a form there. Be our guest. Tell us about you, and we will see if we can work something out. Also, if you're thinking, I really wish Cal had asked this question, or this is a great question, go to the website and put in Ask Your Question. For those listeners who have done that in the past, thank you. We are working on getting those answers and getting episode or multiple episodes put together. You're listening to the Grazing Grass podcast, helping grass farmers learn from grass farmers. And as always, we appreciate you listening and encourage you to share this episode with someone who might find it valuable. Also, leave a comment, review, any or all of the above. And as always, keep on grazing. Hey there, listeners. We appreciate you tuning in and want to continue bringing you the best content we can. But producing a podcast takes a lot of time and effort, so we need your support. You can help us out by joining the Grazing Grass community and becoming a supporter for exclusive content and early releases. Also, you can buy our merch to show your love for the show, or by using our affiliate links to purchase products or services we recommend. If you can't support us financially, please spread the word and tell others about our show. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to bring you more great conversations from grass farmers like you.